Good evening, everyone. Welcome to tonight's regular meeting of the Council of the Township of North Dundas, today being November 29th, 2022. Before we kick it off, I just want to express to everyone here, to those in the public that are paying attention, and to my fellow councillors, it's an exciting evening for me. New council members, new energy, new enthusiasm, and I'm looking forward to the next 4 years with my fellow councillors. Moved by Councillor Annable, seconded by Councillor Uhrig, that the meeting of the Council of the Corporation of the Township of North Dundas be hereby called to order at 7:01 p.m. All those in favor? Opposed? Seeing none, that's carried. Moved by Councillor Uhrig, seconded by Councillor Annable, that the agenda be adopted as presented. All those in favor? Opposed? Seeing none, that's carried. Any disclosures of pecuniary interest or general nature thereof? Seeing none. Moved by Councillor Annable, seconded by Councillor Uhrig, that the minutes of the public meeting held November 8th, 2022 be adopted as presented. All those in favor? Opposed? Seeing none, carried. Moved by Councillor Uhrig, seconded by Councillor Annable, that the minutes of the regular meeting held November 8th, 2022 be adopted as presented. All those in favor? Opposed? Seeing none, that's carried. Moved by Councillor Annable, seconded by Councillor Uhrig, that the minutes of the special meeting held November 15th, 2022 be adopted as presented. All those in favor? Opposed? Seeing none, that's carried. Tonight we have 3 delegations with us, so it's going to make it an easy night for us. We just sit and listen and enjoy. The pressure is on. Our first delegation is our MP, Mr. Eric Duncan. He's going to speak about the Van Camp Cenotaph. Welcome, Mr. Duncan.
Turn this on, that would probably help. Congratulations. I've had the chance to talk to all of you, and as the mayor mentions, your first meeting, a new opportunity, new blood, new energy, and you get an old ghost that comes back from a council past as your first delegation, but honored to be here. I know what it's like to serve at the municipal level, particularly at this table, and I think you're going to have a great council, and you know you have a great supportive staff. So wish you all well, and we'll try to break you in gently with a friendly delegation here tonight, joined by some other volunteers. So yes, I serve at the as member of parliament, but I'm here tonight actually in a volunteer capacity. Realize my title associates wherever I go. But I want to introduce some colleagues that are with us tonight from the Royal Canadian Legion, our Winchester Branch 108, Janet Morris, Sean Doolin, John Barnes. Also is Mark Levere, who is the caretaker at the Van Camp Cemetery Board, and Dave Howard, who you may know from the Mountain Lions Club, but is in his capacity, not there, but as a valued committee member and a descendant, actually, I believe, of a family relation to some of the names, one of the names that are on the Van Camp Cenotaph. I also want to thank Don Levere, who I know both Mark and Don have done a great job over many decades maintaining the Van Camp Cenotaph and cemetery as a whole. And I laugh because I have to explain to people, you would think the Van Camp Cenotaph would be on Van Camp Road. It is not. It is in the settlement of Van Camp on Levere Road is what we're here to speak about tonight. A personal passion of mine and the reason I'm here as a volunteer, I have had the opportunity over the years to attend various Remembrance Day services, dedications, rededications of things, anniversaries of milestones for significant military and war events. And one of the things I've noticed in SDNG and in our community is very often these cenotaphs and monuments become outdated, they become in bad disrepair, and it's often difficult to coordinate an effort to keep them enhanced. I've been over to Europe several times, and I'll tell you, if you've been there, you will know not a blade of grass is out of place on those cemeteries and monuments that they have there. And frankly, very often here at home in Canada, it leaves something to be desired. So our group has come together. I've had the honor of doing this in South Dundas several times, working on several others, but with the Van Camp Cenotaph, to do what needs to be done in the sense of cleaning it, of modernizing and enhancing it, and then also addressing specifically in this proposal what I would call, using one of Kelvin's terms in the planning world, site plan control around that. And I want to thank the mayor as well that has sat in, Nancy as clerk, and Chloe has attended some of our meetings as well, as we've tried to bring this information to you. I won't go through the entire letter and documentation that we provided to you, but what I will just say is that there are the three aspects of the cleaning of the cenotaph itself. There is the enhancements through adding interlock, adding solar lighting, which is a reasonable, efficient way to add lighting so that the cenotaph could be visible for those passing by day and night. The solar is a better option cost effectively and also in quality as well in terms of what we do. And then also with the plan, as you've seen included in our scope of work, is there are two issues that could cause future damage or issues to the cenotaph itself. There's the rough headstones that are to the east of the cenotaph, the four of them that could eventually collapse onto it and cause a problem. And on the opposite side of it, although it's private property now, which is the former United Church private property, now a Ottawa resident owning it, there's a driveway right beside it that our worry could be, if the neighbor is willing, if we could help facilitate and encourage the movement of that through relocating it as part of our project budget. It would just make sure that if snow is removed or anything is done, it doesn't get pushed up against it and the fence get bent or rip up any interlocking stone. What is our ask of council? We are willing as a volunteer group to lead and facilitate this project. We've applied to Veterans Affairs Canada for matching funds towards this project. And what we're asking council for has been a template that I've used in various projects I've been happy to chair, is four things of council. Number one, to approve this in principle of the work and the scope of work that we've laid out here. It is not on township property, and I will respectfully say yet. I know there are some conversations that Mark and Don, as long-serving members, they're looking to retire, I think after, I'd say, nearly half a century, in Don's case of helping there. It is privately owned as a United Church of Canada cemetery, but I think there may be just some discussions to bring that into township ownership in the coming years as it gets filled. But nevertheless, if you would agree, as has been supported by the Legion and our committee, for the work that we'd like to do on this project. We're asking for a financial commitment of the other half. So Veterans Affairs matches 50% of a project. The value of the project is just over $21,000 and has been outlined in the document. So we'd ask for 50% VAC and 50% from the township. So that's just under $11,000. I would note on that, we've had some volunteer groups and service clubs step up with donations. That's wonderful if they're able to do that. That would lower the commitment from the township. So we would say up to $10,835. One of the things that's been very helpful over these types of projects is for the municipality to agree to do the banking, which helps from the financial aspect and helps save on the HST costs. Municipalities get 86% of the HST back, and that will help us save hundreds of dollars in this case by doing that. And then lastly, if our Veterans Affairs Canada application is successful, I have put it in my name as a volunteer in our committee, but if council would be agreeable to having that signed, co-signed between our committee and the township, the banking and money go through there, I think Veterans Affairs, that has been tradition that if the municipality helps with that project and does the banking and takes that MOU on, that would be much appreciated, subject to your approval of that. So all of that being said, that is the scope of the project, and I will just end by saying there is the physical rehabilitation of the cenotaph that we're proposing, but there's also an awareness that we need to do as well. The number of people that I've mentioned over the course of the last couple months as our committee has met, what cenotaph? Where's the Van Camp settlement? Where's the old United Church that's there? There are names of 5 young men that lost their life in the First World War, all from around that settlement area of Van Camp. So not only do we want to do the physical restoration, we want to do a memory restoration. And that involves working with local media, working with the township, social media, the website, to tell the stories of those 5 men that gave their lives from our local community in the name of our country and our freedoms. So we have Susan Peters that's working with our group, and we are researching each of those 5 men and learning their stories, and we will be sharing their stories publicly, online, and as part of this rededication, when we do this, doing a community awareness effort that the cenotaph is there and that who the 5 men were. And our hope is to, when we do a rededication ceremony, have descendants of their family present to represent those 5 names, and also, again, make sure that information shared with the public about who they were. And sometimes we lose context. Wars were fought overseas in this case, but sometimes we don't realize the local context. So we also have that public awareness side that I will leave with you to consider. I'm happy to take any questions you may have through our letter, through the appendices and the various documents, but it would be wonderful not needing a decision tonight, but in future meetings, it would be great to have your support to help see this project come to fruition next year. Thank you, Mr. Mayor and Council.
Thank you, Mr. MP. And as our MP has suggested, he's open to questions and comments, and I'll open that up. Councillor Uhrig.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Eric. Just really my only question was, reading through the letter and everything, is there, everything is as smooth as possible with the property owner at this date? There's not any foreseen issues as this project perhaps moves forward?
So I'll say conversations are still ongoing with that. The property owner is aware of the project. So to clarify that what we've done in this is being good neighbors. So we've advised the property owner to say, we are doing this project. One of the first challenges we had was where exactly are the property lines? So we had an in-kind service done to restake where they are. All of that cenotaph is on property. So I don't mean this in a rude way, or we wouldn't need anybody's approval except the cemetery boards for it, but we want to be good neighbors, and we've added some features in to help delineate the cemetery cenotaph property from that now private property. You'll notice in there used to be a very rough iron fence along the road. That's been removed, and we're actually proposing to put a 2-sided iron fence on the back that better delineates to say, this is kind of part, it looks confusing when you have that. So from the cemetery side, and the board fully supportive. From the private property owner, we've had conversations. There's been a request to say, does it need to be there? It could be relocated. No, it can't be anywhere else on the property. It's all being used by burials or burials to come. And no, we don't want to move it off-site or from that settlement area. So if there's not an agreement, for example, to move the driveway, no harm, no foul, our project goes ahead. If there's an agreement to say if you could move it over the few feet, we would cover the cost of moving it and putting it to a proper standard. If there's saying, no, we don't want to do that, no harm, no foul, ours is on the property. And but as my experience, this one's a bit unique. We would love to have, not that there has been uncooperation, there hasn't been a final decision on it, but we can try to make that.
Well, that
in the coming
answers the
months.
second part of my question anyway. And I mean, with all due respect, this private property owner knows what they bought and knows what was there when they bought it. So thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Any further questions for our MP? Seeing none, I guess you covered everything, but I do want to thank you, the group, and I appreciate you mentioning my name as being involved in this. Lightly involved, it should have been qualified. I am fully supportive of that, and I think I've expressed that before, and it's something that preserving the history of our community is important. And I thank the group for taking this challenge on. I think it's a challenge that's success is easily achieved with this. Not that it's going to be easy, but there will be success, and there shouldn't be too many hurdles. And I anticipate that the Township of North Dundas look forward to being supportive, but yet to be determined to what extent. I look forward to the opportunity as Susan Peters develops more information and gets it ready. I hope we can support the efforts on our website and on our social media pages about the community and the history of the community. Every aspect of our history is important, and this is a very important part of it. Saying all that, thank you very much for the presentation. Thank you, Mr. Doolin, Mr. Barnes, and Janet. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Dave, thank you very much. Enjoy the rest of your meeting. Good luck with it all.
Oh, I'm sorry, Mr. Levere. The next delegation we have in front of us tonight is Mr. Ben DeHaan, who, Director of Transportation Services. I believe that's the correct name now. Thank you. Works for you. And Mr. DeHaan is going to give us an update on the regional waste management efforts.
Perfect. Thank you very much. And I know I saw on the agenda the presentation is provided, so we're going to breeze through that and appreciate the opportunity to come and speak with you. This is my third presentation to council and my third time I'm in front of a new council at their first official meeting, so I'm feeling very fortunate in that respect. So tonight I'm here talking about the regional waste management regional waste management roadmap to collaboration that we at the counties have been working on. Excuse me, sorry. There we go. Check one, check two. All right, so I'm here tonight to talk about the Regional Waste Management Roadmap to Collaboration, which is something that the counties has been working on with the local municipalities for the past several years. We've created a pretty comprehensive document that the council's more than welcome to look at if they feel like falling asleep one night. But really what that represents, and I don't know if they just go to perhaps the next slide on the presentation. It's a comprehensive report. We had a consultant working for us, working with all the municipalities, trying to collect data and provide some recommendations and things that require certainly more analysis and more detailed consideration from all of us together. And so the way I've been characterizing this report that's been prepared by DFA Infrastructure is think of it like a buffet. So we've got a buffet in front of us, and that, when I say us, I mean collectively all 6 local municipalities across Stormont, Dundas, and Glengarry. Each municipality has different challenges right now, different priorities, different things, levels of service that they provide. And there's a buffet in front of us all, and we have the opportunity to sit down and figure out what parts of that buffet we either, North Dundas wants to participate in, or North Dundas with everybody else, or North Dundas and North Stormont. So there's a real opportunity, a real wonderful opportunity in front of us all. And so what we're looking for today, and what I'm here to talk about today, is really the first course of that buffet, and it's what council has, the full report in front of you. What we did as a steering committee, we've been working as a steering committee, which involved local staff, myself, and our consultant, and we've created a very condensed executive summary and action plan. And what that is it's taking what we feel are the parts of the buffet that everybody can continue to work together on and kind of provide us with the next steps in terms of this whole process. So tonight I'm just giving a very, very brief summary of what that includes, looking for some support from all the local councils. This is something that County Council supported in October as our last County Council ended their term. And that's what we're talking about tonight. So very quickly, and I won't spend too much time on this, but what this slide is intended to show council is that there's a lot of different variation across SD&G in terms of the level of service that's being provided out there. Talking about frequency of collection, what kind of, how many containers, what their fees are for bag tags, where they're going with the waste that's being collected, what their stops are, their tonnage disposed, things like that. So everybody's got different levels of service and different things going on across Stormont, Dundas, and Glengarry. And similarly, landfills are another challenge, and I think that this council will become acutely aware, if you're not already, of the challenges here in North Dundas. And just checking in with Angela prior to our meeting tonight, the expansion that at the Boyne landfill that started, I think, well before we actually started working on this, continues on to this day. And I think that again goes to illustrate the challenges that a lot of our local municipalities are going to have in the future. So, can I characterize it as pain? Okay, the pain that North Dundas is going through is close on the horizon for others too. So this is the opportunity to say, hey, let's talk together about how we want to be prepared for this, and also how does North Dundas fit into some of these potential opportunities. Similarly, as I expand on landfills in the next slide, right now there are 7 closed landfills within SD&G that continue to be managed by local municipalities. So that's, again, a financial liability that local municipalities each have a burden of, and each are managing those things individually. So there's something that there's an opportunity to talk about. Can we work together on how we manage those closed landfills rather than individually we're all kind of looking at them on our own? For those in particular that are seeing the end of their landfills coming closer, one of the great attributes we have here in SGG that a lot of other local municipalities and regions don't have is having a private landfill, like the one at the Eastern Ontario Waste Handling Facility in Moose Creek. So that's located in North Stormont. A lot of the local municipalities are already sending their waste there. But they're all sending their waste there individually. So one of the options that we think that there's an opportunity to, for those that are interested, is talking about, like, can we work together with that facility and actually secure long-term contracts at a more equitable and affordable price. Similarly, City of Cornwall, in the same boat, they're looking ahead to the end of their of the capacity of their landfill, and they've been participating in some of these discussions as well. So what I'm really here tonight for, and I trust at a future council meeting, a more formal report for a formal endorsement will come, and I hope you have that template that we've provided. Perfect. Really, there's 4 recommendations that we're talking about, or I'm bringing forward tonight for council for their hopeful endorsement. And the first one really is, I think, the keystone of all of what I'm discussing this evening. It's obtaining a commitment from local councils to create a formal regional waste management working group. And what does this mean? This means that we're looking for local municipalities to direct their staff to actively participate, and not only actively participate in a formal working group, but come back and report back regularly to you as a council so that you understand what we're talking about, what each municipality is talking about, and what kind of projects these municipalities are working on potentially together, or what other municipalities are doing to kind of provide that context of what's happening regionally in waste management. In terms of what the county's role in this is, our county council has said they want to continue to have staff like myself support it. It is not something that the county directly provides any service for. Like we're not in the waste management game. We're, as the regional level of government, the commonality is we are part of all of these local municipalities, and so we I guess you can almost think of us as the thread that combines us all. So the county, as it stands right now, is still going to play a role as, a supporting role with this group. But ultimately, what we want to do is see like a formal term of reference, have a rotating chair across the local municipalities that's leading the group, invite the City of Ottawa, City of Cornwall, Leeds and Grenville, some of our neighbors that are, we don't normally think of as partners in this, make sure they can come, participate, join in the discussion when necessary and when deemed appropriate by this group. So that's recommendation number 1, and what I would say is the most important one in my view. Number 2 is the individual producer responsibility, which I'm not going to spend too much time on that this evening, but and you may or may not know, but there is big changes coming to the Blue Box program for municipalities. And the summary of that big change is that, lucky municipalities, you don't have to collect Blue Box in the future. That's something that is supposed to be done by the people that are producing the waste that goes into the Blue Box. So this is a part of a very comprehensive environmental legislation that the provincial government has enacted well before COVID happened. And of course, the pandemic has created some, I would suggest, some impediments to actually getting it implemented. But as it stands right now, by 2025, Blue Box is not something that municipalities have to provide anymore. It's supposed to be done by the people that are making that waste. So what does that mean for us? Well, it means big things for us because the provincial government and these producers that are creating this waste, exactly how it's supposed to be collected, what does it mean for our residents, what changes? There's not supposed to be a change in terms of what is being collected and the frequency of it, but the expectation is it will be impactful. So one thing we want to do as a group is focus our efforts on making sure that we have a good plan and transition strategy while that changes. So we want to make sure that we have good communications out to our residents, that it's consistent, that everybody is on the same page in terms of how we are communicating, and then we're sharing that information, and not only that, but sharing the lessons learned, because the first regions that are starting to transition to the individual producer responsibility start in 2023. So we're lucky by being 2025 as a region. That gives us the opportunity to see what the lessons learned are for some of those areas that are starting to transition right now. Recommendation number 3, and I think it's a pretty straightforward one, is making sure that the participants are annually providing their accurate financial data back to the Regional Waste Management Working Group. And the reason we're suggesting this is one of the biggest takeaways and positives that I've heard from the major report we have is that it's been the first time that we've been able to, as neighbors and as local municipalities within a region, be able to compare and contrast our costs. Like, what are people doing? How much is it costing us per resident, per stop, per ton disposed? And that's been helpful, because that helps to make us understand, okay, well, what are you doing a little bit differently? Or, you have a 3-bag limit. Oh, look at this. It's costing you a lot more. Well, comparatively. And you can really start to understand the impacts of some of the way we, the levels of service we provide and how it makes a difference financially to us. Or similarly, if you have contracted collection versus in-house collection, what that looks like, and make sure we have a good comparison of costs. Not to say things need to change, but just rather it's just a good opportunity to compare ourselves with others on a very accurate and level playing field. And last but not least, in terms of recommendations, is adopting a regional base level of service. And I know this maybe sounds scary, and it's not intended to be scary. This is really about, I wish I would have changed after preparing this presentation, I said, you know what, I should have called this a benchmark, because this is really what it's not all about. We're not suggesting that anybody should be changing their level of service, but what we are suggesting is that we should have a regional, collectively as a group, identify a regional benchmark. And the reason for that is that if we do end up working in partnership on certain things, by having a benchmark, we can at least make sure that if, I'm going to use the example of South Dundas and South Stormont have contracted collection services. One has a 2-bag limit, one has a 3-bag limit. We set our contract up based on the benchmark. And then the extra cost associated with whomever's above the benchmark, they have to pay that incremental cost more. So it's a way to be able to, as we form, do certain activities together, we can make sure that we're fairly costing across jurisdictions. And so with that, I'll leave it with council. It's concluding remarks for me is that it was a real challenge to get to this point. It hasn't been easy. I know that we work closely with Doug, and I hope he's enjoying his retirement. And I appreciate all the input and support he provided to the group as we work through this. It really opened all of our eyes in terms of how people are doing things differently and the different challenges that some have versus others. And there's been a great partnership, and on the steering committee in particular, I want to acknowledge Sarah McDonald from South Glengarry and Tim Wright from North Glengarry, who have kind of helped bring us right to the end, and Ross Galately as well in South Stormont, who's been on the steering committee for a good portion of the work as well. So, with that, I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Hahn, for that presentation. And it's been a presentation we've been looking forward to for a while, and to have it presented to our local councils. And you know as well as I the consternation expressed and the opinions expressed at the county level, but a presentation like this, I think, alleviates some of the stresses and answers some of the questions that have been floating around out there. And I thank you for doing that. But I will open up the questions and comments. Deputy Mayor Bergeron.
Hi.
Hi.
I have 2 things on my mind. One, we've already spent a lot of money to try and expand our own landfill, and so we would have to figure out the costs of whether we do our own landfill or be part of this. That's one thing. And secondly, when you say you're talking about Ottawa and Leeds, Grenville and Cornwall, how much landfill do you think GFL will be able to take? That's a lot. That's a lot.
I think you would be, if you've never, and I'm not advocating that that's exactly where the final solutions are. I want to be very clear on that. But, I have had the opportunity to visit that facility, and I can tell you it's not a problem. they're looking for, they have quite a footprint that's still part of their facility, and they're undergoing an expansion process right now as well. And certainly for them, having long-term contracts with people that are close are things that they're looking for. So that's answer number one. In terms of the money invested in the landfill in North Dundas, like that's, well, I'm not suggesting that that's the answer and everybody has to participate and be part of it. For those that have the resource and capacity there, that may make the most sense financially for the municipality to continue to do that. So, like going back to the slide that showed the different age of, life of all those landfills, that, just because, and I can't remember off the top of my head, but let's say South Glengarry has 7 years left on their landfill. It may be that they say, you know what, we don't want to do an expansion. We don't want to build a new landfill. In 7 years from now, we want to join in, where North Stormont's already going there right now. So it's the type of contract that might be North Stormont comes in here, and in 2028 is when South Glengarry's volume starts to, join into it. So it could get very complex, but it also, I think, I don't want to give this impression that we're trying to handcuff, or that this is about trying to get people to all join in and send their stuff to their own land, to a different landfill. If you put your money into your landfill and you want to continue to use it, there's nothing that's going to oblige you to do otherwise.
Thank you.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Councillor Urick.
Thanks for the presentation, Ben. I guess my only question is you're looking to form a working group, but is it within this working group that maybe you would start looking at more innovative ideas in terms of waste management, waste collection, rather than just the same old collect your garbage, throw it in a pile, throw it in a dumpster, whatever? I mean, thinking, I don't know, green bin or anything like that. Anything that could be monetized, I guess, to SCNG's benefit rather than perhaps a private enterprise's benefit.
Yeah, and that's a great point, because that's exactly, I think, what could come out of this is understanding, okay, where can we take this as, in terms of technology, doing things differently. I was at South Dundas last evening, with this same presentation. The next presentation after me was Food Cycler. I don't know if I don't think North Dundas has participated in that, but talking about some of this, I would suggest that there's an example of something that was a little bit innovative and different, and providing some of their successes that they've had with that program, and even from Food Cycler's perspective, kind of the next technology that they've got, and how to address some of the shortcomings that they've seen in the work they've done. So, yeah, I think that's the kind of thing that we see
Thank
from
you.
this group.
Further questions, comments? Seeing none, I guess your presentation covered it. And I do want to thank you for reiterating the shared thought that this is an opportunity, and as I've expressed to some, it's an opportunity to find out what our neighbors are doing, to find out if the things our neighbors are doing would be advantageous to us. The things are we doing, are they advantageous to them? It's a good networking opportunity, and that's the way it started out. I know the impression of it switched. The impression switched throughout the course of the efforts, but you've got it. You've got the impression back on track as to this is meant to be an advantageous thing for all, and if it fits, it's a good idea, and if it fits down the road, it's still a good idea, and if it doesn't fit, it's a good idea for some.
Yep.
And I think that's the intent of the effort. I hope I'm.
Yeah, no, absolutely. That's
Still
how I'd
somewhat.
characterize it. It's a buffet, and we're going to be, some might enjoy the dessert, and some might not.
Well, Mr. DeHaan, thank you very much.
Can you tell I'm hungry? Thank you. Have a good night.
Thank you. And our next delegation, and bear with me, please. I've been having trouble with names all night. So our next delegation is from the Cornwall SDG Human Services. And you'll have to remind me when you cut up, ladies. And please make sure the microphone's on. We're going to tape it down in the future.
There we go. And I'm going to move it in the middle so we can both share it. There we go. Thank you, Mayor and Council, for having us here this evening. My name is Melissa Morgan. I am the General Manager of Human Services and Long-Term Care for the City of Cornwall, and with me is Lisa Smith. She's the Housing Services Manager for the City of Cornwall, but we represent all of the city and SDNG and all of those services. So many of you, I think, were part of the orientation session, the joint orientation session. So much of what you see in the presentation tonight is that same information. So we're not going to repeat it all. It's more for your reading pleasure again. There are a few slides we really want to concentrate at the end, which are the most important ones that will lead us into future conversations and future delegations with North Dundas and many of our other councils across SDNG as we move more into our long-term plans with housing. So I will give you just a little bit of a summary again in terms of the services we provide. So we realigned our department in January of 2022 when we brought our local housing corporation, then it was called Cornwall and Area Housing Corporation. We brought them in-house. The city was the sole shareholder of that corporation, so we brought them in-house. They're now city employees, and we have been able to really improve on collective services that we offer and better service for the clients of Cornwall and SDNG. So we renamed our department at that time to be more representative of our geographic area and the services we provide. So now we are called the Cornwall SDNG Human Services Department. Within that department, we oversee 3 core areas: Ontario Works, Children's Services, and Housing Services. And tonight, we're really here to speak to you about the housing services side of things.
Next slide.
Back one, I think.
Oh, actually, back one, sorry.
There we go.
Is this the next one?
No, sorry. That's all good. Keep on.
Okay, so one more slide, sorry. And then one more slide. There we go. So the Housing Services Division is made up of essentially roughly 7 core areas. It includes everything from the direct provision of community housing, so that's providing housing units to residents of our area, through to looking at how we implement ministry funding within our community and the region, to planning for housing, and also includes the area of housing and homelessness prevention. So essentially, it runs the full continuum of the housing spectrum, from homelessness all the way through to hopefully securing long-term stable housing. Next slide, please. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this because I do think we covered this during the orientation, but it is there for your information. Next slide. In terms of our housing providers, again, this is just to reinforce, so as Melissa mentioned, the Cornwall and Area Housing Corporation was amalgamated in, but we support up to 12 other providers within the community that are operating to provide community housing. Includes groups like Beek Lindsay, Royal Oaks Cooperative Housing in the city of Cornwall, and other providers throughout the region, city, and within the counties as well. So again, here you can kind of see who is directly operating within the counties. You can see that we're providing at about 432 units currently to residents of the counties of SDNG. And I think this one is of interest, and let's spend a little bit of time here. So as we look at moving our housing plans forward, it's important to keep in mind the scope of the need that we're currently seeing. So this number says right now there's 453 households on the wait list. The most current number is actually sitting at 475. So we can already start to see that there's more people applying for subsidized housing and having to go onto the wait list. And the important thing to note about this is rent geared to income housing wait list. So that's where you're paying 30% of your income towards housing. It's often based on your shelter benefits and your allowance that you might be getting through social assistance. What it doesn't show is the wait list for people who might be waiting for what we call affordable housing. So that's more like a median market level rent. Not as high as what you would pay in the private market, not as affordable as rent geared to income. So to some sense, the centralized wait list only tells part of the story. And again, important to keep in mind, 475 households. So that could be families, seniors, and individuals. So it's much larger in terms of the scope of the people waiting on that list than just the 475. And it's important too to take a look at where the pressure point is in the system. So you can see that about 1.5 years is the length of time you'd wait if you're a family. Our biggest need is 4.3 years for single housing. So this is non-senior single housing. So this might be I'm a single individual, maybe middle-aged. There's not a lot available for me. And you can see currently our shortest wait list is for senior housing, and I think that's because of the great work our providers have been doing at providing community housing for seniors. Next slide. So again, I'm not going to spend a lot of time here, but there are a variety of ministry-funded programs that we facilitate within the community that are beyond just the provision of actual units of housing. One of them is Ontario Renovates, so it helps low-income households to stay within houses that they may already own by keeping those houses in livable condition. Again, this is our OFI and COCHI programs. Again, when you hear OFI, OPHI, think programs. When you hear COCHI, think capital. So P for program, C for capital. What programs do are things like rent supplements, other supports on the programmatic level we may be providing. COCHI actually provides capital repair money to community housing providers within our community. So our stock is aging, and this helps those providers to keep it, again, in livable condition so it can continue to be available in the future. I think one of the interesting things we do locally, and again, it's our focus on trying to cover the full spectrum of housing need. We have a partnership with Habitat for Humanity where we provide the down payment to eligible families. We do about 1 to 2 families every year to help them to secure a Habitat for Humanity home. So we are looking at home ownership efforts. Rent supplement is another way that we try to keep housing affordable, and we have different types. So there's the COCHI and OFI rent supplements, which provide about 100 to 200 per household. Coming up, there'll be our COB program, which is actually the next slide. So COB's a little different. So rent supplement's tied to a unit. So what we say is this unit's going to receive, or this apartment's going to receive money to help make it more affordable. COB is a portable housing benefit, means it's tied to the individual. So as they move around communities, they keep that benefit. So different types, the government and through our own municipal efforts, we try to do a mix of options for people because different things work for different people. So our housing and homelessness, or our HP and our HHPP money that we're getting from the provincial government. So this is about focusing on a housing first approach to address homelessness. And the idea with housing first is if you can get somebody housed, you can often help support them through a myriad of other issues they may be experiencing, right? So if you think about healthcare, it can be difficult to get in-home healthcare if you don't have a stable place to live, right? So homemakers, PSWs, all those kinds of things. So we actually provide support to domiciliary hostels. So we've got about 332 subsidized beds in the community, and that's for people who need a higher level of care in terms of where they live. Again, often these individuals would either be homeless or at risk of homelessness. Our crisis bed program is meant to be a short-term emergency stay for people who are homeless. It's part of the way that we're working to provide some emergency level support to individuals within our community. And then there is kind of our deeper homelessness prevention programs, of which I think the next one comes up, we'll talk a bit more with the by name list. So what we've recently done, I think it's our second one, we're correct, Melissa? We did a point in time count. So what that does, it gives us a sense of how many people in the community on a particular night may be homeless. So you can see right now our most recent number was 77 individuals that identified as homeless living in our area. But that again is just a snapshot at any one time. It only works when you see the people where they are. And often what we know in rural communities like ours is there's a lot of hidden homeless, right? So a lot of people who are couch surfing, very insecure in terms of where they live, often living in precarious situations. So again, it's just a snapshot of what's actually happening. What's coming out of that by name list is the individuals who agreed to be on it. It allows us to start to provide a wraparound support system to them to keep them stabilized until they do become housed. So we've actually recently hired 2 housing stability coordinators who are registered social workers who are taking on the individuals on the by name list in a case management capacity. So they're looking at, you know, what is it they need? Mental health support, addiction support. How do we get them connected into services? And because they're social workers, they can actually do some initial intervention until the system's ready for them, because I'm sure you're all aware of how overloaded our social service system is at this time.
So the next couple of slides are where we want to concentrate our efforts for this presentation. And they really talk about long-term plans and things that we've already put into place to discuss where we want to go in the next 5 to 10 years. So the first one is our 10-year housing plan, of which we just did a 5-year update. So the ministry has mandated that all service managers, and we're the service manager for our geographic area, that they're required to do a 10-year housing plan, and that was done in 2011. We did the 5-year update, and so we will be coming up soon for, sadly, another 5 years. It kind of went by real fast. The last 2 years kind of just flew by. And that's really where we have to provide to the ministry a strategic plan on where we're going to go with housing. Some of the things that came out of our last 5-year update were things like a housing revitalization study. So one of the things we discovered was we don't know what we don't know. We don't know, other than our wait list, where the need is, where we should be concentrating our efforts, what the future projections look like in terms of, you know, the wait list is 475. However, what's that going to look like 5 to 10 years from now based on growth of our area? And so one of the things that we did engage in was a housing revitalization plan. So that's our next slide. That was part of our 5-year, one of the recommendations in our 5-year review. And unfortunately, a good portion of that engagement with our housing revitalization plan took place in March of 2020. And we kind of got drowned out by a global pandemic. So the company we hired, Colliers International, they completed the housing revitalization plan for us. And we certainly presented that to city and county councils at the time. And that really gave us a roadmap on where we need to concentrate our efforts. And one of the staggering things at that time was it showed that over the next 10-year period, and again, this was in 2020, and we kind of thought, oh, by December, we'd be out of a pandemic, that our housing needs assessment showed that we would need an additional 740-plus units required across Cornwall and SDNG to meet the demand of the service. And 40% of that was in the city, and 60% would have been across the counties. So that's part of that plan showed us not only where we needed to concentrate our efforts, but it also did a review of our existing stock, both owned by the city and owned by external providers, and where we needed to then look at also revitalization of existing stock. So it did a number of things for us, put us on a path forward. Of course, we're now 2 and a bit years into a pandemic. And so one of the things we're going to do in 2023 is re-engage Colliers to do an update for us on this housing revitalization plan to see the impact of the pandemic on housing as it relates to this document.
Great. So, to see the housing revitalization plan in action, you can see our 2 most recent developments, and there was a very recent announcement about a third in Morrisburg. So that's our first new build in the counties in quite a while. So right now, our biggest development is the 77-unit property that's at 9th and McConnell in the city of Cornwall. Those are 1-bedroom units. Again, you can see a bit of the strategy that we're looking at with our builds as we move forward. So 24 of the units in that building are rent geared to income, 24 what we call median market rents. So I don't know if you recall earlier, I talked about rental levels that are affordable. That technically would be what's called affordable rent. And then there's 24 attainable market units. So that's where we are using basically profit for purpose, looking at how can we put out some market rentals, still at an attainable level, but to help offset the cost of having to support RGI or affordable level rents. The other thing too is we are committed to adding barrier-free units to our build because again, this supports individuals to age in place. So we've got 15 of those barrier-free units being located within that property. Our Pitt Street North property, which will hopefully begin construction shortly, It's actually going to be shovel-ready for 81 two-bedroom stacked townhouse units. So what you're going to see is a bit of a trend in terms of the size of the units. As you can see by the wait list and what we know from the Housing Revitalization Plan, the biggest needs are smaller size of units, right? Family composition's changing. We maybe don't need our 4 to 5 bedroom units in the same way that we used to. So we are trying to look again at having a mix of units that we know there are pressure points around where there is some need. Again, it's going to be a mixed rental community, so a mix of RGI, medium market, and attainable market. And our Morrisburg property, which again just got announced, will actually expand on our existing Morris Glen property in Morrisburg. There's vacant land already serviced sitting next to that. We own it, so it's a pretty logical place to start building in terms of our first project out into the community. This will have a 3-story building with 17 two-bedroom units. And then we're also going to be looking at adding occupancy to that site as we go forward. And I should mention, as I said, with our Pitt Street North building, shovel-ready for 81, but we're starting with 27 of the 81 units.
So what we also recognized was that many of the different municipalities were either creating their own local plans or having task force in terms of housing. And so, they include the Mayor's Housing Task Force, each of the individual county housing reports. And so what we thought would be important is really looking at the commonalities of all of those reports and where we as a service manager might have a role to play in that area, and really dissecting those and bring them all together into more one comprehensive report that we could really look at as a collective. And from there, what we did was, it was the impetus for the development of a new collaborative that we have developed. And it really is bringing together representatives from all 8 areas, as well as the service manager, to have a robust conversation on, what do we need to look at in terms of a long-term development plan for the entire geographic region. So as service manager, again, we have a housing revitalization plan that identifies for us where we should be concentrating our efforts, the types of units we should be building, but really, everybody has a stake in this. And so what this collaborative has done, we've had about 3 meetings so far, and really our main concentration right now is to look at a number of things, like the vacant land, what are municipally owned vacant lands right now. I think we have come to realize quite quickly, and more so, that was really heightened during the pandemic, that we can't afford to just be selling off vacant land or disposing of vacant land without the thought of what that might be for housing in the future. And I think we're really several years, probably 10 to 15 years, sort of behind in the game in terms of identifying vacant lands for future use for affordable, attainable housing. So what this collaborative has done so far is we have really had a look at, across the entire region, what are some lands that might be available that are either municipally owned or they're part of our existing stock that we could look to start approaching the different councils on, perhaps earmarking those as future affordable housing sites. We're not there yet. Certainly one of the big things that we are running across, and something that I would have never thought of, I graduated university and would have never thought of lateral infrastructure as being key on my priorities, but one of the things that really is coming to light for us now is that it's one thing to say we might have a vacant land, but where is that going to fit in our development process? Because there are many areas where lateral infrastructure is either maxed out or, they're going to get to a point where it's going to be maximized with other, whether it's commercial or housing being brought in. And so also looking at how that impacts us and how that could be played into effect into the next 10 years in terms of development. One of the things that we want to do with this collaborative as well is, again, not only get those vacant lands identified, but have them form part of a 10-year development plan in 2023, We plan to bring in another consultant who will do exactly that for us. Look at all of the vacant lands that we may have come to various councils and asked whether or not they would like to donate vacant land for that purpose. Put it into a long-term development plan so that it's shovel-ready, site plan-ready. Anytime we get funding from the ministry, one of the things that we often find that in the last 2 years with all this ministry funding that's been announced, we're behind the 8 ball and that we're not really where we think we're shovel-ready. And so we want to be able to have a really robust plan that kind of is right there. We have some money or we're ready to invest future funding. And so we want to pull these things off the shelf and say, this is our next development. This is where we need to concentrate. But it really also puts into perspective if North Dundas has a piece of vacant property, but it's not going to be ready to be developed for maybe 10 years because of infrastructure, then it's still earmarked now and it's still in the plan. It's just a little bit further down the plan. So that's really where this collaborative, I think it's one of the first in its kind across the province in terms of bringing the service managers together with every representative from the geographic region to have a joint conversation on how we can be effective as an entire group instead of working in silos to try and all achieve the same thing. I think that was our last slide. So this was our introduction to, once we get that list of vacant lands identified, how we want to begin to approach councils on where we, different areas we think we'd like to look at our efforts. Again, we own several pieces of property throughout Cornwall and SDNG that some, in our plan have been earmarked as possible densification or having expansion possibilities. And so it may not be just asking for vacant land. It may be that we have the land available. It's just how can we plan for future development of that? So this was kind of our introduction to, we might be back.
Well, thank you, Melissa and Lisa, for that presentation. And I don't want to say every time I hear it, but every time I hear it, I'm just amazed at how much information needs to be collected, how much information and all of the tentacles that go out to support our community of SDG and Cornwall and SDG, and the juggling that must go on to balance that out and to get it into the right slot, to ensure that the right direction is being taken to support those that are looking for the support. Kudos to you. It's such an endeavor and such a large task that you're taking on to support us, and my thanks go out to both of you for that, because it I don't want to say it baffles me, but I'm just amazed at the numbers that go around and your passion for ensuring that the right things are done. So thank you for that. But I will open it up to questions, comments from members of council if they have any. Deputy Mayor.
I'm going to have a really green question here. Who is financing all these buildings?
Right, so that's a really good question. The first 3 developments that you saw, they're partially funded by social services, different phases of the social services relief fund. And so the 77-unit building in Cornwall, that was the first that we undertook. Initially, it was supposed to be 2 phases, and then when we hired the architect, we realized there would be more economy of scale if we went one big building. And so right now, that building is partially funded by the provincial government and then being financed through the city. Pitt Street will be financed partially through Social Services Relief Fund and then financed through the city. Morrisburg, we're not there yet. It'll be partially funded through the ministry. But ultimately, what happens is all of the funding, whether it's borrowing from the city, borrowing from North Dundas, whoever borrows the money, however we determine that, it all goes through our joint services agreement. And so it's all part of whether it's, we've borrowed $1 million, we've borrowed $5 million. These projects get approved at city and county council levels. And so the understanding is with the approval, there is in those reports typically a funding formula and the amount we borrow. And then that amount to borrow, to repay that on an annual basis gets part of our annual budget, housing services budget, and it becomes part of the cost sharing with the joint services agreement with the city and the counties. Now, that's another barrier that we're also understanding is that debt limits for the city and various councils is also getting quite precarious as well. And so we're also facing that as well. A part of our 10-year development will be the rough cost to, build some of these units that we want in these areas. And so what does that funding look like? Because again, we're only as advanced as we can be based on the amount of money that municipalities can borrow, right? So we have been putting money aside in a regeneration reserve so that we hope that when mortgages are being paid off, we are reinvesting that money into a reserve to build that reserve so that when it's time to pull another plan off the shelf, we can hopefully finance it quite a bit through that reserve and bring the cost down. And then we hope that it's what we would label good debt because we bring in rent to pay off most of what it is that we borrow, right? And there's hopefully a limited amount of money that has to be subsidized at the municipal tax base level.
Is there anything further, Deputy Mayor?
No.
I covered it?
Yes.
And again, you just reinforced my thoughts that this is such a complicated monster that you have to deal with. And it's impressive that you're able to. I'm truly impressed. Anything further from members of council? So yes, ma'am, our CAO.
Just wondering whether, for council, for our consideration, when you're saying thinking about the lots that we might have and about retaining them for this purpose, do you have a minimum size in mind that we should be considering? And does it need to be a property that would be on municipal services versus one that would be private services?
Right, so those are questions that we certainly are asking our collaborative. And so, again, we've tried to ask for a cross section of disciplines as well, whether it's planners or finance or what have you, to be able to bring into the conversation. Ideally, we'd like to look at municipally owned service land because the fewer dollars we have to spend on purchasing land or putting in lateral infrastructure obviously makes it more affordable, less money we have to borrow or more affordable rents that we can charge to those who might be living there. So ideally, we'd look at municipally owned serviced lands. But we're also looking at, other areas of things like vacant schools and, again, property we already own that we can just expand upon. When we do look at vacant land, is it serviced? Is it something that we want to concentrate on? And so a big help for us has been Peter Young with the counties who's mapped all of this for us. And we've been able to identify perhaps some key areas. I don't think, obviously, if we want to be as diverse as we can, but one of the things for us is the more properties we have, or the smaller they are in size and the more they are scattered all over the place, the more administrative work and maintenance work that takes. And so there's more administrative funding that goes with that, as opposed to, if we built a sixplex as opposed to two side-by-sides as an example. So I think we were ideally looking at like 5+ acres, just to be able to plot a larger developments so that it's less administratively burdensome and costly to be able to serve those buildings on an individual basis.
Yes, and I think, at the county level, whenever I had the opportunity with the former deputy mayor to talk about the struggles as we traveled back and forth to Cornwall to go to the meetings, the opportunity, the opportunity must be out there for municipalities or townships that don't have the infrastructure in place to make commitments to a pool, if you would, or to support other municipalities that are doing projects that would support the initiative, and I'm sure that must be an opportunity that could be had.
And I certainly, we have also, anytime we have had the opportunity, also explaining to the minister, deputy minister, that in smaller rural urban areas, the biggest issue is debt and infrastructure. And so it's great to identify, but if the ministry, or there's not going to be any funding federally or provincially for infrastructure supports and additions, we can't build housing. And, you know, we can't afford to put in the infrastructure. Not only that, but again, debt. And we had a recent conversation where we posed to the minister the question of, should debt that's incurred for housing be part of a municipality's debt limit? Because we're now just competing against landfills and fire halls and every other infrastructure asset that, you know, municipalities and councils have to contend with, right? And so we pose that question on, if it's good debt and it's helping to repay itself, should it really form part of a municipal debt limit? Because otherwise, councils have to make a decision on, are we building a fire hall, are we building housing, you know, are we building a landfill, as an example? So it really is kind of a bit of a shell game right now, but competing priorities, but it's, the lateral infrastructure is going to be a big issue across a lot of, I don't think just in this area, it's in a lot of rural areas where infrastructure, lateral infrastructure is really a hot topic right now.
It is. It is a very, very hot topic, and it's going to become a hotter topic as we go forward, and to support initiatives like this, or to even support growth in our own communities. It's that aging infrastructure and the need to change that out and to improve or increase the amount of infrastructure that we have underground. It's going to be quite a conversation and a challenge for all of us. But I want to thank you for your presentation. If there's nothing else, and I can only say it once again, I'm always amazed at the effort and the challenges that you face and you face on our behalf, and I want to thank you for that. And saying that, thank you very much, and good night. Before we move into closed session, I want to make sure that it's captured that there's a notice going out of Notice of Public Information Center. The Township of North Dundas is advancing a Schedule B Class Environmental Assessment, a Class EA, to determine the most suitable option to increase water supply to the communities of Winchester and Chesterville. So the Public Information Center, the consultation will take place Thursday, December 15th. It'd be an open house from 5 p.m. to 7 a.m. I'm sure it says 7 a.m., but I'm not sure which one is working overnight. It's not me. So I'll correct that. I just read what's in front of me. The open house will take place from 5 p.m. to 7 p.m. on Thursday, December 15th, here, the Council Chambers, Township of North Dundas, and that's 636 St. Lawrence Street, Winchester, Ontario. This is a topic that's top of mind for very many people out there in the public, and rightly so. And here's an opportunity to see at the open house some of the steps that will be taken to achieve the goals we have in front of us. Moved by Councillor Uhrig, seconded by Councillor Annabelle, that council proceed to close session at 8:10 p.m. pursuant to Section 2392 of the Municipal Act, subsection C, a proposed or pending acquisition of land by the municipality or local board, specifically related to the water main loop. And subsection B, personal matters about an identifiable individual, including municipal or local board employees. All those in favor? Opposed? Seeing none, that's carried. So welcome back, everyone. Moved by Councillor Annabelle, seconded by Councillor Urick, that the council return to open session at 8:25 PM. All those in favor? Opposed, see none, it's carried. Action requests, transportation, Mr. Cheney. Oh, I'm sorry. Moved by Councillor Urick, seconded by Councillor Annabelle, the council instructs staff to follow through on matters discussed in closed session. All those in favor? Opposed, see none, that's carried. Mr. Cheney.
Thank you, Mayor Fraser, members of council.
Moved by Councillor Annabelle, second by Councillor Urick. The council approved budget amendment number 2022-20 for additional municipal drain maintenance to be conducted in 2022.
So this year, we're going to do approximately 21 kilometers of drain maintenance. Our $100,000 budget that we have is a shortfall. So I'm requesting a budget amendment of another $100,000 to cover the cost. However, the township pays the upfront cost to the contractors, then recoups the money back from, a third of it comes from the province and 2/3 of it comes from the landowners. So it'll be of no cost to the township other than the upfront one.
Questions, comments? Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Moved by Deputy Mayor Bergeron, seconded by Councillor Lennox. The council approved budget amendment number 2022-21 to cover additional costs incurred for the removal and replacement of sidewalks in the amount of $8,359.
So this year, while we were doing the sidewalk panel changes on South Street in Chesterville, some curb work was identified. It wasn't part of the original tender. The contractor at the time was given permission to go ahead with it. So it's an $8,359 overage of the budget. However, the financial analysis, the money's going to be moved from dust control into the sidewalk removal budget, so there'll be no additional cost to the township. It's just a move.
Thank you. Questions, comments? All those in favor? Opposed? Seeing none, it's carried. Moved by Councillor Lennox, seconded by Deputy Mayor Bergeron, that council approved budget amendment number 2022-22 for payment of an invoice from Advantage Data Collection in the amount of $7,152 for sign reflectivity inspections.
According to the minimum maintenance standards for municipal highways, we have to have a reflectivity test conducted every year, and that gives how reflective our signs are. They give us a list of what signs have failed, and once we get that list, we go and replace them. However, this year, we've had quite a few new signs go in, and we've had quite a few replacement signs. That was more than the anticipated 2022 budget. So I'm asking council for an extra $7,152 to be covered by the general surplus in the 2022.
Questions, comments? All those in favor? Opposed? Seeing none, it's carried. Moved by Deputy Mayor Bergeron, second by Councillor Lennox, that council declare unit number 3261, a Pronovo P862 TRC snowblower, which is approximately 30 years old, to be surplus to the needs of municipality, and that council authorize that it be advertised on the township's website via sealed bids with a minimum bid of $1,000.
So we have received our new 2022 snow blower. It is being worked on right now to get ready for the season, and we no longer require the used ones, so I'm asking for council's permission to put it on and sell it as a surplus.
Questions, comments? Councillor Urick?
Just general knowledge, where is the snow blower used?
We use it mainly for Chesterville, Morwood, South Mountain, any of the outside areas that we require it. We do use it in Winchester if we have to. However, with the new snow blower that we have and the new tractor that is going on, we should be able to do quite a bit more snow removal.
Perfect. Thank you.
Anything else? All those in favor? Opposed? Seeing none, that's carried. Moved by Councillor Lennox, second by Deputy Mayor Bergeron. The council approved rolling road closures of designated portions of township roads and also seek permission from the United Counties of SDG for rolling road closures of designated portions of county roads to vehicular traffic to facilitate the 26th Annual North Dundas Parade of Lights in Winchester on December 3rd, 2022, commencing at 6:45 p.m.
So we're looking for council's approval on a rolling road closure. It will start here in the township office, or parking lot. We will have streets uptown. The map is attached of where we will have the streets blocked off. As the parade goes by, there will be volunteers and there will be members of the town, of the recreation department. We'll be taking barricades down and moving barrels off to the sides and stuff, so it will be rolling as the parade goes through. It'll turn left up in town here, go out Main Street, and then turn onto Dolly Drive where it will finish up there.
Questions, comments? All those in favor? Opposed? Seeing none? Carried. Thank you, Mr. Cheney. Madam Clerk. Moved by Deputy Mayor Bergeron, second by Councillor Lennox, that council requests the United Counties of Stormont, Dundas, and Glengarry Chief Administrative Officer request a minister's exception under subsection 14.1.2 Conservation Authorities Act for Mr. Bill Smurl of the Township of North Dundas to serve on the South Nation River Conservation Authority Board of Directors as a representative of the United Counties of Stormont, Dundas, and Glengarry for a 4-year term, 2023 to 2026. Madam Clerk.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and Council. There have been some recent changes to the Conservation Authorities Act. At least 70% of the appointees have to be from a council member, but if we want to appoint somebody who's not a council member, then we have to ask for a minister's exception. So what I have attached here to this report is an application form that we would need, plus a copy of a letter. And I'm recommending that Mr. Bill Smurl be our representative for the South Nation Conservation. He has been on their board since 2011, and he frequently comes and gives us updates. And he has contacted the Clerk's Department, and SNC has also contacted the Clerk's Department with regards to his nomination.
Thank you. Questions, comments, members of council? Thoughts? Councillor Urick?
My only thought is that Bill's been an excellent to serve North Dundas in this role in the time he has served. And I mean, not that this should be the only impetus for us to approve this, but the fact that we have a citizen in our community that wants to do this role on our behalf speaks volumes to his commitment to South Nation conservation.
Thank you for your comments. Further comments? Deputy Mayor?
Yes, Mr. Smurl did call me, and he really wants the job, and he's been there for a long time. And I mean, I really admire the man. The man is like 81 or 82 years old, and he is really on the ball, and he knows what he's doing. So, you know, good on him.
Thank you.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. Anything further? We've all heard the question. All those in favor? Opposed? Seeing none, that's carried. Moved by Councillor Lennox, seconded by Deputy Mayor Bergeron, that the Council of the Township of North Dundas appoint someone to the Rideau Valley Conservation Authority's Board of Directors for a term of 4 years commencing in 2023. Madam Clerk.
Okay, similar to the previous report, we also need to appoint somebody to the Rideau Valley Conservation Authority. Our current representative right now is Jerry Boyce. He's also been there since 2011. The clerk's office has not been contacted by Mr. Boyce to say whether or not he's interested in continuing. Therefore, there's no name in this recommendation. If it's a council member, then it's just a resolution that has to go forward. If it's an individual, it's the same process as I previously mentioned.
Thank you. So, thoughts on being a council member sitting on it? Is there a council member that desires to sit on it? Shall we have a competition to see which person wants to sit on it? There's an opportunity for a member of council to sit on this. Deputy Mayor, have you had thoughts on that?
I don't know, now that I'm deputy mayor, I hear I'm going to be on other committees.
This is just one more.
Just this one, no, I see the whole list underneath there that's coming up also.
That. Yes, please go right ahead. I was looking for comments, but that
I
was-
mean, my comment is, and you mentioned that you haven't heard from Mr. Boyce, but I mean, my first path would be to contact him and see if he's interested again. I mean, he was an advocate for the Rideau Valley Conservation while he was a member of this council table, and I would think it would be positive on our behalf just to offer it again, or even gauge his interest in it again. Unless, of course, there's a member here that would like the role.
Thank you for your thoughts. Any other thoughts and comments? I think we'll need to take Councillor Urig's comment and reach out to Mr. Boyce and to see if there's a desire on his part to continue being our representative.
Okay.
How do I deal with this?
We'll have to defer it. Because I need a council resolution if he's the name, and then we have to apply for an application and a special permission from the minister to allow.
Will I have another
We have a-
resolution to read of the deferral? That we defer until we have reached out to our current representative? Is there someone that's
I
going
would
to be?
just defer that, the one that's in front of you now, and I can bring that one back.
All those in favor of a deferral? That's carried. Thank you. Bylaws.
No, there's a parade of lights. There was an additional report. You should have a resolution there for,
Yes, I'm sorry, it's not on my paper. Moved by Deputy Mayor Bergeron, seconded by Councillor Lennox, that the Council of the Township of North Dundas confirm they have no objection to the Winchester Legion extending their liquor license to include the Legion's parking lot from 5 p.m. until 12 a.m. on Saturday, December 3rd, 2022, as part of the Parade of Lights celebrations. Madam Clerk.
we received a last-minute request from the Legion. They want to use the parking lot during the Parade of Lights to sell liquor. And in order to do that, we need a resolution from council, and we have to send a letter to AGCO. And as I've indicated in the report, we'll also give them a copy, the Legion, a copy of our nuisance bylaw, because they've requested they want to keep it open till midnight potentially, but our noise bylaw kicks in at 11 p.m.
Questions, comments? Councillor Urig.
Not that I think us council would be awfully Grinch-like at this holiday season, but I'm just curious, what is is there any sort of expectation on the township's part that these kind of requests would come in sooner than this, like 4 days out from an event?
Yes, there is an expectation, and we have talked to them, and we've told them that going forward, we need at least 30 days' notice for this type of thing.
Thank you.
Anything further? Any other questions, comments? We've heard the question. All those in favor? Opposed? Seeing none? Carried. Bylaws. Moved by Councillor Lennox, seconded by Deputy Mayor Bergeron, that bylaw number 2022-01 being a bylaw for the appointment of officers, agents, staff, committees of council, and recreation associations be updated as presented this 29th day of November 2022. Madam Clerk.
So as I've indicated, this is a very fluid document, and I've updated as many things as I can at this point in time with new council members and staff changes and whatnot that have occurred since the last time we brought this to council, and they're all indicated in the report. Going forward, I do need to fill some positions that are done by council. I would like to be able to bring this bylaw back in the January meeting because it's typically the first bylaw that's presented in the new year. So if you can talk amongst yourselves or come to agreement on any of the open positions that are there and let me know, then I can add those to the report. I did want to touch base a little bit on committees of council for the new members who may not be aware of what's actually involved. So I have included in here the frequently asked questions that have come from our insurance company. The 4 things that you have to do are not from the insurance company. They are actually part of the Municipal Act. So all of those 4 things have to occur. And it's also really important that if you are on a committee of council, that you go to the meetings, you engage with them, and they actually take direction from you, and you are the municipal representative. If that doesn't occur, and if they don't run their money through our township, they will not be covered if something happens with insurance. Those things are mandated. We have a new insurance company now, and they're pretty strict on that. Now, for not being a committee of council, you can also be a volunteer committee. And so I've also included a couple of outlines here for what you have to do if you're a volunteer. It's a little bit different in that they don't have to run their bank accounts through, but they do still have to be managed by somebody here at the municipality. The other thing that we have to start doing is we have to keep a roster. So for example, the Parade of Lights is not a committee of council, they are a volunteer committee. So this weekend when they have the parade, their volunteers are going to have to sign in as a roster so we know who was actually volunteering that night. There's a few other things that have to happen by law, one of which is accessibility training that has to go through all our volunteers. And so far, we've been up to date on that for the people we know. But going forward, we're going to have to bring another report to council because there are special things that they think we should be doing for volunteers that would reduce our risk. They're not mandated, they're recommended. But the things I talked about committee of council is mandated. So I'm willing to take any questions or clarifications or stuff you think you might need.
Questions, comments, thoughts? Councillor Annabelle?
It's like Nancy said, or the clerk said, it's going to be some homework on our part to see which department or committee you want to be a part of and you feel that you can do the most for. So would you like us, like if I pick 3 things, I just come in and tell you that those are the 3 I want to do?
Yeah, absolutely. If you want to just email me which ones you're interested in, and, you know, I can go over those with Mayor Fraser, and we can try and work out who's on what committee, and
I think, if I may jump in, your question identifies maybe the process that needs to be taking place. Identify what committees you're interested in, get everyone identify which ones you're interested in, submit it to our clerk, and then the clerk and I will have an opportunity to look at that and bring it forward at the next meeting and have the discussion again, and just establish who's on what. Make sense?
yep, absolutely.
Anything further on that one? Okay. We've all heard the question. All those in favor? Opposed? Seeing none, carried. Key information, transportation, Mr. Cheney.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Members of council. Eric Hansen, warden for Camp Sheldrick, has requested that the snow be plowed on Webb Road up to the gate of Camp Sheldrick, as they want to keep the camp open during the winter months this year. This is approximately 1,500 meter section of Webb Road from Nesbitt Road north, and it has been deemed as unmaintained, use at your own risk, and is a dead end. To change the designation of this section of road from unmaintained to maintained would require bringing the road up to a maintained higher standard than what it currently is. The road would require some brushing. It needs to be widened. Then it needs to be on a rotation of stone and grading. We need to add signs. We also need to make a snowplow turnaround as there is, it's a dead end and there is no place to turn around at the end. There would be quite a large financial cost. However, should council wish to consider this further, the acting director of transportation can calculate an approximate total cost and bring it to the next council meeting.
Questions, comments? Deputy Mayor.
I don't think that Mr. Hanson realized how much it would cost to keep that road clear for the winter. I think he, in his head, thought, oh, the snowplow when it's going by could just clear the road. And he didn't realize that in order for us to clear the road, we have minimum standards for the road, which would be extremely costly. So I don't know, did you explain this to Mr. Hanson?
Yes, I did. I explained to him too that because it's been designated an unmaintained road, that's council's decision to change that back to a maintained road. I told him we would have to bring it up to a certain standard. It's a 4-meter wide road. It's nowhere near wide enough. We need a minimum 6 meters plus a shoulder on, an extra meter for shoulder. So there's quite a large cost that's going to be involved with that. We didn't get involved in too much cost-wise. I just told them that it would be quite a large cost to bring the road up to a certain standard. I know that in the past, they've had locals plow the road, they've had other people drive down there, but the costs are starting to get astronomical. Plus, if anything should happen, it is a township road technically, and if anybody should get hurt or anything on there, plowing snow and they don't have the authority to be on there, there could be some ramifications for that. So I know there's no contractors, from what he has told me, that want to even plow the road without a high cost.
Councillor Annabelle, then Councillor Yurek.
Well, our decision would and should be made on the cost. I wouldn't like to see you have to spend 60 hours to figure that all out, but if you could get us something to make a yes or a no on, I'd be comfortable with that.
For sure.
I could throw a number out at it. It'd be south of $500,000, but north of 250,000. Would that be a fair guess?
It would be, yes.
I just saved 60 hours. Councillor Yurek.
Even with that rough guesstimate right now, I mean, my gut was already saying no. We've got deficiencies in some places already in our road network, let alone a very short percentage of road, which is already deemed unmaintained. I understand the push behind to have Camp Sheldrick open. I understand that in the wintertime. However, I can't digest a cost that high to change over such a small portion of road.
Councillor Lennox. Fair enough. Fair enough. Yeah, and just maybe it's just so I have a chance to hear myself talk, but the idea of unmaintained roads being unmaintained and then deciding, because this does come up occasionally, that people have a desire that we start maintaining unmaintained roads. That changes the scope of of what we do. It changes as there's challenges financially, but then the challenge, I think, truly becomes much larger than that as the desire to maintain more and more unmaintained roads for valid reasons in other people's minds, but and for the township of North Dundas, it's just not tenable to manage to do that to satisfy everyone's desire. And as I'm not suggesting that desires aren't truly felt to be necessary. But as for the community as a whole, it's not manageable, and it doesn't serve us well. So I think the direction, Mr. Cheney, is that we're not going to move ahead and maintain that unmaintained road.
Thank you.
Boards and committees. I usually rely on the deputy mayor to speak about what goes on at county council and what's taken place recently. But I won't do it this time.
Oh, yes.
I won't do it this
Oh,
time
No,
because-
yes, you will, yes, you will.
But you won't.
Okay, I was sick and I couldn't make
No,
it
no,
for the
that's,
first
that's,
meeting.
that's not important. I mean, it's important to you, but that's,
I'm not
you don't have
supposed to
to-
say what happened,
well, you weren't there.
but I know what happened.
Ma'am,
Okay,
I'm
so
trying-
I will announce that this is the new warden or the warden-elect for the counties.
Although you weren't there to see it happen.
I know, but you told me and I read it. I got a notice from the counties
Yes, they did provide you
that
notice.
they provided me a notice and said that you're going to swear in on Friday. So I don't think they would have sent me something that wasn't true.
No, of course they wouldn't. It's all up and up. True, true, true. Yes, and yes, so the swearing-in ceremony is December 2nd.
Second.
Thank you. December 2nd is the swearing-in ceremony, 11:30 a.m. It will be streamed for those that can't make it but are interested. And yeah, it's going to be a busier time for all of us in North Dundas, especially the deputy mayor. Well, she seems to want to take things on. So it's going to be a busy time for us in North Dundas, but I look forward to the opportunity to represent all of SDG, but also as a member of the North Dundas Council and the mayor of North Dundas to be sitting at the head of that table. And it was not that long ago, a year ago, our deputy mayor sat for 5 months as the warden, and now it's the opportunity for me to do the same. And I look forward to the challenge. So there should be more and more updates from county council, and I hope they're not too lengthy as we go forward. Motions, notices of motions, none. Petitions, none. I do want to reiterate the Parade of Lights is Saturday, December 3rd. I think I was talking to Gary, our Councillor Annabelle, about that, and I had the date wrong, but it's Saturday, December 3rd. I look forward to everyone enjoying the event. It's back on the road again as opposed to being static. It'll be going through the village of Winchester. There's lots of anticipation for good weather and an enjoyable evening, and I look forward to that.
Dry, just dry.
Try. Madam Clerk, is there anything else that I've missed? Madam CEO? No? Moved by Deputy Mayor Bergeron, seconded by Councillor Lennox, that bylaw number 2022-94 to adopt, confirm, and ratify matters dealt with by resolution be read and passed in open council, signed and sealed this 29th day of November 2022. All those in favor? Opposed? Seeing none, that's carried. And before we close it down, I just want to say thank you very much to the new council, and as our I don't know if it's truly our first meeting, but it's our first meeting with delegations, and I appreciate the engagement and the participation by all, and I look forward to more and more of the same. Moved by Councillor Lennox, seconded by Deputy Mayor Bergeron, that council adjourn at 8:54 p.m. to the call of the chair. All those in favor? Opposed? Seeing none, that's carried. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen, for paying attention and participating. Until next time, take care. See you at the Parade of Lights.